Hi everyone! My name is Kyla Danya from BSED32E. So let's proceed with our topic in BSEE 41 validating sources. So I'm with my group together with Danuzo Kylie and Lopez Ernestine. So let's start with our research title. So our chosen research title is all about understanding visual language learning barriers and strategic approaches of first year English major and ESL context. So let's start with our research gap. While studies have examined visual learning strategies is in general EST context, example is HAG and Madani 2023. Komilova 2025 research is focusing on specifically on first year English majors in the Philippines and SCURS. This study seeks to heal the gap by providing quantitative research on the student experience and coping strategies and visual language in learning. So let's start with our first valid and reliable sources. So Ramat NH and Mohandas ES 2020 vocabulary acquisition among ESL learners and a look at strategies and barriers. So this is published by ResearchGate. So the summary of this one is this source is reliable because it's research studies. It talks about the real problems of English major students like difficulties in vocabularies, learning strategies, and the use. So the information is based on data, not just an opinion, not valid or unreliable sources. So this entitled random blog or personal website. Example is Learning English Fast blog. So this is uploaded on EF. Yes. So the summary of this one, this source is unreliable because this is based on personal opinion. It may talk about English major students, but there's no proof, no research, and no expert support. So guys, if you don't want to be part of AI world, it's time for you to fact check. Always do fact check, guys, ha. So again, thank you for listening in my part. Again, let's proceed to the next presenter, which is
Good day everyone, I'm Ernestine Lopez and one of our RRL is the study is written by Bali, Delen, Bandi, and Zido in 2025. So the title of their study is the understanding the cognitive cost of multimedia learning effects on visual load and language proficiency. So this study related to our research because it talks about multimedia learning and how students understand lesson when there are many images visuals like images, animations, and text on the screen. So the study also found that this situation is more difficult for students who are using a second language or ESL learners. So because of this, the study suggests that multimedia material should be simple, clear, and organized so students can understand the lesson more easily. So, this source is reliable because it is published in peer-reviewed journal under Springer and which is trusted academic publisher. The study also used research methods, data collections, and analysis, which means the results are based on scientific research and evidence. So overall, this related literature supports our study because it explains how multimedia learning, visual load, and language proficiency can be affect students' learning and so for me, what makes that information trustworthy is that the study is based on scientific research methods. It involves proper data collection and analysis, which helps ensures that the findings are accurate and not just based on opinions. So in addition to that, the study presents evidence-based conclusion, which means that the results are supported by actual data gathered from participants, making the information more reliable. So the paper is also supported by references to other academic works by citing related studies. It shows that the research is connected to existing knowledge and has a strong academic function. So one of the sources that I found that is not reliable is This one, examining of preparatory and first year students' online learning readiness and presence in English language courses, which was uploaded on academia.edu.ph. So this paper focuses on students' readiness and engagement in online learning. It explores how students participate in virtual classes and examines how prepared they are to adapt to digital learning environments. The study highlights the importance of both technological skills and active participation in achieving effective online learning or the However, despite its relevance, this source is not considered fully reliable. The main reason is that it is taken from Academia Edu, which is not peer-reviewed academic publisher. So this means that the article was not necessarily evaluated or reviewed by experts before being made available online. And additionally, there are many important elements missing that affect its credibility. First, there is no clear assurance that the paper undergo peer review. Second, since the platforms allows everyone to upload content, the quality of the research can be vary greatly. So lastly, the article is not officially published in in a recognized academic journal or database, which raises questions about its academic reliability. So while the study provides useful insights about online learning readiness, it should be used with caution. It is always important to verify sources and prioritize peer-reviewed and credible academic materials when conducting a research. So that's all for my part. I'll be giving the floor to Miss Kylie to further our RRL.
Good day, everyone. My name is Janelle Hernandez Lanuzo. So, for the last part, I'm going to talk about the last valid and last invalid resources. So, again, our research title is Understanding Visual Language Learning Barriers, a Strategic Approach of first year English majors in ESL context or English as second language. So again, our study focuses on how first year English majors experience difficulties in understanding visual materials such as images, videos, and infographics. So the strategies they use to overcome these challenges in learning English as a second language. So again, I'm going to talk about the research gaps. So again, the research gap is most existing studies focus on general ESL difficulties like grammar, vocabulary, and speaking skills. So, however, there is limited research that specifically explores visual language learning barriers. So, especially among first year English majors, as well as the strategies they use to address these challenges. Now let's move on to our sources. First, we have our valid, reliable source, which is Multimedia Learning by Richard Mayer. So, this source explains that students learn more effectively when information is presented through a combination of words and visuals, such as pictures, diagrams, and videos. So, it highlights how the human brain processes information using two channels. So, the visual channel and the verbal channel. When both are used properly, learners are able to understand concepts more deeply and remember information for a longer period of time. So, in relation to our study, the source helps explain why visual materials are important as ESL learning. But at the same time, it also supports the idea that students may experience difficulty if these visuals are not designed or interpreted properly. So this directly our connects to our topic about visual language learning barriers. So this source is reliable. Why? Because it is written by an expert, which is Richard E. Mayer, who is widely recognized in the field of educational psychology and multimedia learning. It is it is also published by Cambridge University Press, which is a highly respected academic publisher known for producing peer review, and research-based materials. Furthermore, the content of this source is based on years of scientific research, experiments, and evidence that it is also widely cited by the other researchers, which means it has been reviewed and trusted by the academic community because of these reasons. We can say that this source is credible and valid and highly appropriate for academic search. So for your context, you can access this source, the link that I put here in my PPT. Next, we have our not valid or unreliable source entitled Visual Learning is the Best Way to Learn English, which is a blog post with no author. So this source claims that visual learning is the most effective way to learn English, and it suggests that students can easily improve their skills just by using pictures and visual materials. However, the problem with the source is that does not provide any supporting evidence such as research studies, data, or references to credible authors. The claims are general and not supported by any facts. In addition, there is no identified author, which makes it impossible to verify the credibility, background, or expertise of the person who wrote it. We also cannot determine if the information is based on professional knowledge or just a personal opinion. So, this is a major issue in academic research because sources should always come from knowledgeable and credible sources. Another problem is that blog does not clearly indicate when it was published or updated, and it is not affiliated with any academic institution, journal, or organization. So, because of this, the information may be outdated, biased, or inaccurate. So, for your reference or context, here is an example link of this type of blog. I'm gonna put the link here on my PowerPoint presentation. Because of these missing elements, such as lack of author, absence of evidence, and weak credibility, we can conclude that this source is not reliable and should not be used in academic research. To conclude, it is very important to evaluate and check the validity of our sources before we use them in our research. So, reliable source provides accurate evidence based and well supported information, which helps strengthen our arguments and improves the overall quality of our study. On the other hand, using unreliable or invalid sources can weaken our research because the information may be incorrect, misleading, or based on the opinion. So this can affect the credibility of our work that may lead to wrong conclusions. So that is why as researchers, we must always check the author, source, evidence, publication, and credibility of reference that we use. So thank you for listening, and that's it for our discussion and validating source. Thank you so much.